Good morning. We're here today with Justice Jane Cutler Greenspan, who's agreed to grace our filming area here with her presence, and I appreciate you coming.
I'm happy to do it.
I really do. So, can we start out with your background? How about?
Of course. Well, it's interesting. I started my legal career right here on the third floor
Really?
of City Hall.
City Hall?
My first job as a lawyer was as a law clerk to Justice Robert N.C. Nix.
Oh, right.
When he was an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. So what goes around comes around, and as I was passing, actually, right down the hall was my first office as a judge. So as a lawyer rather,
Okay.
and so I worked for Justice Nix for 2 years, which was my commitment to him.
Okay.
And it was terrific. Being a law clerk is just the best job out of law school,
You think
I do
so?
believe.
Wow.
Oh, absolutely. You learn so much. You see great lawyers doing, the work of the law, and then you're working with a judge or justice who has tremendous experience as well.
Of course,
and they're sort of mentoring you
Okay.
in your beginning years without having to worry about missing anything or making mistakes that might happen in a law firm situation where you've got clients that you're responsible for. So it's really a terrific way to learn and start out. I do believe that. And the fact that I did it right here on the third floor of City Hall and I'm back again to talk about it is really remarkable.
Literally. I mean, you started clerking for the Supreme Court and eventually made your own way there. Yeah.
Exactly. So we worked, there were three, it's interesting, back then each justice had 3 law clerks, except for the chief. At the time it was Chief Justice Jones, who had 4, of course, because he clearly needed it. I mean, he had so much of the miscellaneous docket.
Okay.
But now when I started as a justice, I had 7 law clerks, which is, I mean, just wonderful. You can't beat it. It was terrific, and when people ask me about what was the favorite thing about being a justice, I really do say working with my law clerks.
How about that?
So it's interesting that sort of confined my legal career. Of course, now I work as a neutral at JAMS doing
Is it an arbitration?
mediations and arbitrations, and when I do arbitrations, I do have the help of one of my ex-law clerks, which is really wonderful.
Sure.
So I'm, still in it full force.
Right.
Anyway, after clerking, of course, I went on to the district attorney's office, and of course went right into the appeals unit because I had been a clerk to the Supreme Court. So it was an obvious. And I love that. The collegiality of the people in the appeals unit was wonderful. And it just was a great place to also start really start, in a sense, in my legal career as, having to be responsible to
to
a client.
Yes.
And there I was tapped almost within a year and a half when Ed Rendell came in to be the district attorney. He tapped me to be the chief of domestic violence and private criminal complaints. And so,
which is a tough area.
It is a tough area, but it was so incredibly satisfying. I worked to start what was then called the pilot project. It may even be still called something like the pilot project. It was a citywide team that when child abuse cases came into hospitals. 3 hospitals participated with their social workers in a team approach to dealing with child abuse, so that it wasn't just the police coming in and
right.
arresting parents and breaking up families and whatever. It was, and the police participated, and they were terrific in
Good.
terms of trying to work with the social workers and do what was best for the children.
Yes.
Because these are very difficult
Bottom
cases.
line.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So that has remained. They still work. There is still a team approach in child abuse in Philadelphia, and it's extremely important. Back then, one thing that really got it started was the fact that pathologists who were seeing children who had been abused and killed, saw old wound, old breaks and old things in history. And so it was very important for the police and the district attorney's office to try to, in order to prevent these fatalities, to get in early.
Sure.
And so that's why there was a big push in the child abuse area. So it really came from the pathologists, which was very interesting.
Well, I used to work I started work in 1972 as a juvenile probation officer.
So you know the drill in terms of back then, what
Yeah.
was going on, and it was very,
I had a few very
abused
problematic cases.
children, and I know that were coming into the system. It remains a problem, as does domestic violence.
Sure.
All domestic violence.
Right.
And, but we were working very hard. Women Against Abuse began back then.
Yeah.
Women Organized Against Rape, which was really not domestic violence, but had its, origins back then.
Sure,
when
I remember Warren.
people were worrying about victims who were really not, the people that were victimizing them were not strangers to them.
No.
And
Unfortunately.
unfortunately is right. And so it was an interesting time.
Yeah.
In any event, I did that in the DA's office for a while. Then went back to the appeals unit because they were just starting investigating grand juries in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
And so they needed somebody in appeals who was really working to make sure that those investigating grand juries were going to be considered constitutional under the and so I worked with the investigations unit that was handling the start of investigating grand
so you were
jury
right
work.
there
So I
with
was
them.
right there with them,
Yes.
and argued the first case, which I don't know if anybody remembers the Mrs. Paul's case.
No, what was
That was, it was a fraud by the corporation. They, their fish sticks, right?
Yes. Catholic
exactly. So it was an
school
interesting
Friday night dinner for years.
exactly. So it was that was wonderful legal work that I loved.
Yeah.
And that was great. And then from there, I became chief of the Superior Court Appeals in the DA's office.
Yes.
And so I was really supervising what I call the best lawyers in the world.
Okay.
The young DAs who were coming in to do the work of the appeals unit in the DA's office, and they were just terrific. And
There's such a camaraderie. I've known several people who used to work at the DA's office, and they
we
still
still
talk.
get together.
Yeah,
to this day.
You know Steve Cooperstein?
Of course,
Yeah.
Steve's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
He's
yes.
a good friend of mine.
Oh, absolutely. I still see Steve. We get together all the time.
Yes.
Mostly for his birthday and my birthdays.
Okay. His wife
But
told me he's a good cook now.
He
So.
is, and I just actually had the pleasure of marrying his daughter,
Oh, good.
which was wonderful. Marrying his daughter to her husband, who's also terrific two terrific kids. And that was
Wasn't
was
Shayna,
wonderful.
was it? No.
No, it was Caitlin.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And Shane and Kelsey were, of course, bridesmaids.
Okay, of course.
Yeah. So it was really, that was a very fun time. But I see Steve, and he was a terrific appellate lawyer. He still is to this
Smart
day.
man.
That's what he does. I mean, essentially for the law firm that he works for, he really does all their legal. They're really important legal work.
Yeah.
Well, appellate and motions
Okay,
work, I
yeah.
would say, because trial work is still legal work.
Yeah, sure.
You
Well,
can't
right.
pass that
No.
Anyway, so from being a chief in the DA's office, I was by then Rendell had become governor.
Uh-huh.
And he appointed me to the Supreme Court of, oh, well, no. I went from being from the Superior Court, how can I miss my 22 years as a judge? I just went,
We just
I just
skimmed over it?
skimmed right over it.
Okay.
Well, right, all that time he was being the mayor and then the
Right.
governor. But I went from I guess it was in April of 1987, I went on to the bench. That was, as you may recall, back then it was the KC5. We were actually
Right.
the KC7.
Oh.
Patrice Tucker and I were part of the 5, but we didn't have to run in 1987. We didn't have to run till 1989. Our appointment, they put us into appointments that allowed for a longer time before we actually had to run for
Oh,
office.
good. Yeah.
And Patrice Tucker, as you know, is the chief judge of the Eastern District.
Right.
So she's, or has been, I'm not sure if she still is, but
We
she's a federal
interviewed
judge,
her.
yeah.
We did interview her last year, I think.
Right, exactly. And so
And there were
Patrice and
other-
I didn't have to run till '89, but we
Okay.
were put into that class in any event and part of the Casey people because we were appointed by Casey.
Yeah.
And so in 1989, when I had to run, I had been a judge on the bench now for,
Couple of
almost
years.
2 years.
Yes.
And so what's, I think, pretty interesting is running for judge as an, person who's actually a sitting judge is
Yes.
pretty difficult because you have to be very careful now. You're under ethical rules.
Yes.
You're
a
not
judge.
just, you're a judge and under ethical rules and running for judge and putting out your position on various things becomes
Yeah.
difficult. But in the end, I did, the circuit of going to committee meetings and whatever as I was, I had to do in order
Sure.
to run.
Yeah.
But as it turned out, I don't know if you remember the Center City Stalker case. That was my case back then,
Oh.
and it so happened that I was able to sentence him right before the election, and of course he got and deserved a very, very huge sentence.
Yeah.
And so the press was pretty good about that
Yeah.
because it was a terrible case for what he had done, and so getting that publicity, I think, helped me when I ran in the Democratic primary because, it's running, you're just on this slate.
Yes.
And, the people don't necessarily know you, but if they recognize your name,
Yeah,
you get,
right.
They'll vote for you. And so that was actually pretty helpful to me in running. And
Well, it's also because you did a great job with the case, right?
well, hopefully,
So, yeah,
hopefully.
yeah.
It was good press.
Okay.
And so then I was elected and continued as a judge for many years, doing trials and really eventually mostly homicide trials.
Wow.
And then doing a lot of, the civil work I did was mostly actually civil motions.
Oh,
And, some trials, but mostly civil motions.
Yeah.
And that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. There was a year when I was the motions judge for discovery, the civil motions. Now,
why did you enjoy it?
The lawyers were pretty good.
Okay.
That's why.
Yeah.
In the motions work, when I had to really have a motions argued,
Yes.
there's usually a good lawyer and a good case.
Okay, great.
Because otherwise, they work things out. It's,
Yeah.
that they only come to you when it's tough and
Uh-huh.
difficult,
Yeah.
and there's something that really needs to be, a real dispute.
Yes. Well, it sounds challenging.
It is more challenging. I felt
Yes.
the motions work was
Yeah.
challenging.
Okay.
The discovery, when I was the motions, I did all the discovery motions for the court, all the civil discovery. Nowadays, they split it into the
It's
teams.
quite a lot of work, isn't it? Yeah.
That was, but back then, I developed a situation where I had most of the discovery was, when a motion was filed, usually there was an agreement between the lawyers as to how to handle it. And those that really needed my input, where they couldn't decide, I put them on Friday. And so I had my arguments on my discovery motions all on Friday, and I'd give them a time, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and I'd put a bunch on each time. And by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the lawyers who were at 3 o'clock, they had settled. By 3 o'clock, my 3 o'clock Friday group and my 4 o'clock Friday group
Brilliant
had to
calendaring.
set,
Yes.
right, exactly, had settled the whole thing. They were, that's Judge, we don't need you, we're good.
What a good answer. That is
Exactly.
so good. And then
So
people
it was
police
pretty-
themselves on
right.
Friday, yes.
Exactly.
Especially after 3.
That's right. So, and I had, wonderful cases throughout my career.
Mhm.
My homicide cases were really quite extraordinary, some of them.
Well,
Capital cases and dealing in all of that
Yes,
difficult time.
I can imagine.
But it was...
Actually, I can imagine. That's
I
got to
know.
be so...
It was very challenging,
Yeah.
very, very challenging. The lawyers in the homicide area were, of course, exceptional.
Yes.
And so it was really fabulously interesting work.
Good.
And tough. And, and when we had, when we had victim impact statements, mothers who were talking about their
Lost
children
sons.
who
Yeah.
had been killed and murdered. It was rough,
Yeah.
but it was important work, and that, seeing justice be done
Yes.
and trying to help them, through it, at least giving them some thought that, there's nothing, I can't bring back your child, but you have to understand there are mothers out there who'll never know what happened to their
Or
child.
now, quite a few of
Or
those,
never get
unfortunately.
justice for whatever happened to their
Yeah.
child. So, you've got to understand that at least you have something to hold on to.
Yes, and you can see that something's being
Exactly,
done.
exactly. So it was, that was also very interesting work. And all my, my work for the Procedural Rules Committee, the
Yes.
Pennsylvania Rules Committees.
Okay.
I was on several rules committees.
I read that, yeah.
And I was on the Domestic Violence Task Force of the Attorney General. I've done a lot of statewide work.
Yes.
That's also been extremely satisfying.
Yeah.
So it's been a terrific career, and then it was topped off with
Hello, Supreme Court.
right, an appointment to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. I couldn't be happier with that, that's for sure. So it was really, I've been very, very lucky.
Yeah,
I've
well-
been in my career very, very lucky.
Yeah, well,
In my life, very lucky.
Apparently, a lot of people think you do a very, very good job, too. So,
Well, thank you so much.
is there any particular case or that stands out in your mind that?
Well, the cases that I handled as in the homicide area, were very well covered. The Eddie Pollock case, yes.
Yeah.
That was a very tough case because we were dealing with students, really, students from Abington.
Yeah.
Abington High School and students from here, from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And what those students did in that case was so extraordinary. I mean, it was not a gun case. These kids went out with bats, baseball bats. It was such a tough.
Why did they pick
time.
on
Eddie Pollock?
Yeah.
He had nothing to do. It came out of the fact that apparently some high school students, gals, had come to Philadelphia and they were mistreated in some way, or they complained about something to friends of theirs at Abington High School who decided to come down and
wreak havoc.
Right, exactly, and seek revenge. And so it turns out that there was a party going on, a keg party, by these high school students. They shouldn't have been drinking, but they were. And Eddie Pollock, who had not been involved in anything involving the Abington kids or the girls or anything like that, he happened to be one of the, he was getting kids away, running away, and he and another student who actually was a CHA student got, they were the last kids, whatever, unlucky. Slow, whatever.
Yeah.
Not because they were slow particularly, but I think because they were
trying to help others.
And they got caught in this, and they were, beaten severely. I mean, the CHA student was really hurt too, very, very badly, but he recovered. And Eddie Pollock was beaten so severely in his head, actually, that he
succumbed to it.
Yeah, he died.
Yeah.
He could not be saved.
Yeah.
And so it was a remarkable case, and apparently, from what I understand from people I know in Abington, that the seniors that year, many of them wrote their senior essays for college about this case. They were, it was very dramatic for these students. Something in there for them on the order of Parkland. Now, these Parkland students it was much worse in in a million ways, but it had, a significant effect on these kids.
Yeah, still when you see a young person killing another young person.
They couldn't understand how that could be.
Yeah.
Nobody could. It was really an unusual case. It wasn't just, somebody took a gun and shot somebody. That's, sort of removed. You're right in there,
Yeah.
It's extraordinary that, normal, what would otherwise be considered very normal kids.
Students,
behaving so evilly.
Yes.
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah. I mean, you don't think about the person sitting next to you as being a savage individual, but
exactly.
That
sometimes they are.
Especially with drink.
I know. Well, there you go.
So
that was a remarkable case. There, I had a bunch
of a lot of them.
Capital cases too. This was never a capital case, but cases that were really remarkable. cases, sexual assault cases. I do a lot of work in the sexual assault area now at
Okay.
TAMS, but sexual assault cases that
Oh,
were
right.
interesting back then between people who knew one another and had engaged in sexual activity, and now it was
Sexual assault.
now it was sexual assault. I had one very interesting case of a probation officer who complained about her husband.
Oh.
It was a spousal, when
Yeah.
they came in, spousal rape was a new statute at the time.
Right.
And she was, felt that she had been raped by her husband.
Yeah.
And the jury convicted him,
Huh.
which was really remarkable.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying because,
I know.
of a.
It
but-
was an unusual, a
Sure,
very unusual case.
I would assume it's justified when that's the case. you
Right,
know.
exactly.
Yeah, both of them are pretty interesting to me.
Yeah. I've had remarkable cases, I
Yeah.
have to say.
Yeah.
And then going on to the Supreme Court and, working with my clerks on, of course, the most important legal, just legal issues.
Yes. Not so much the emotional.
Not so much the factual
Yeah.
and emotional piece, but
Hmm.
was also very, very interesting.
We're getting a little short on time, but
Okay.
I wanted to ask you two things, actually. Do you think the practice of law has changed a lot over the years, especially since you began?
I think there are a lot more lawyers. There's a lot, we're a very litigious society.
Yeah.
There has been, I think in the tort area, there's been a kind of an explosion. And I
Okay.
think it has something to do with the inflation of awards. So that's
Yeah.
somewhat
In this jurisdiction in
changed.
particular, I think,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yes, exactly, in Pennsylvania particularly, but, and that's something that, you've got great trial lawyers here.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia lawyer.
Yes?
And
Was it Alexander Hamilton?
it was, I think, Andrew
Okay.
Hamilton, who was the original
I knew I was gonna miss
Philadelphia
that.
lawyer. Right, exactly. These lawyers have been able to really put together amazing tort cases. The mass tort area has
Mhm.
exploded since the 70s, when
Yeah.
I really began as a
And
lawyer.
The explosion there means a heck of an explosion when you're dealing with all
It
those
is.
multiple cases.
It is. So that's been something that's been very challenging. And of course, with, in our jurisdiction, we've been very, very blessed or challenged, however you want to look at it,
Okay.
with being a very, very important mass tort
Uh-huh.
jurisdiction.
Well, it's
So
done
we've had a
well.
lot of, we've handled it
Yeah.
beautifully, really. And that one thing that I have to say, and it
Go ahead.
has been true, I was on rules committees with people from other counties, and then I was on the Supreme Court, of course, with people from other counties.
Yes.
And I have to say, Philadelphia has been extraordinary in the civil area in terms of getting its cases on, getting its cases tried. Its case management has been a model
Yes,
for the country.
I think it has been. actually,
Absolutely,
yes.
and
Yeah.
it should be.
Yeah.
We have done a remarkable job in the civil area in case management. We get people to into court within a very reasonable period of time.
Yeah.
In other counties, people wait 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
We're on our most important cases, we're out 18 months to 2 years at
Yeah.
the most.
Whereas it used to be ask the lawyers if they're ready. Okay,
Exactly. Yeah, well, we'll just continue
Yeah.
until they are.
That doesn't happen anymore in
No,
this
not
country.
here. You have to follow our case management orders. The court has really taken over control of managing
Which
cases.
is how it
They-
should be, I think.
Absolutely. They make sure, nothing is put on the back burner. These cases, discovery has to go on in a very organized way with, depositions being done in a certain period of time. And we've
Yeah.
really, we are a model. So you've seen that happen in the past, I'd say, 20 years.
Yeah.
And really started to a certain extent. I think we started with, when Jeff Gallus came in,
Which
was
is
that?
when I came in.
Yeah, exactly. And we really developed. I was on the original Shepherd Committee. I don't know if
Okay.
you remember that.
Sure.
And
And
we wrote up.
I relied on that report many times, or when I was working, to craft reports about other efficiencies in other areas, and it's just it
Exactly.
was a great report.
That's right.
Yeah.
We worked hard on that.
I think I
and-
even stole it and brought it home with me when I retired.
Okay, that'll get cut.
Is there
Anyway.
anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Just that it's been terrific working in this court, the Court of Common Pleas, and of course the Supreme Court, and
Yeah.
being what I consider myself a Philadelphia lawyer, I've
Yeah.
always been,
Okay.
is really makes me very proud.
And we're proud of you also.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
And I wanna
It's been
thank-
wonderful.
Thank you again for coming today.
It's been my pleasure.
I'll
Thank
tell
you for having me.
I'm glad that we finally met.
Yes.
Yeah,
Me too.
thanks.